Welcome to episode 3 of the Flagrant 2 podcast. I am your host, Kyle Flieger, as always, writer for valleyofthesuns.com, and today I'm joined by a guest live in studio to help deal with some of the technical difficulties we had on the last 2 podcasts, my good friend and lifelong Suns fan, Mike Sobek. Thanks for joining me, Mike.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I wanted to get into a couple of topics right away here, and we're going to keep it mostly Suns focused. As those of you who listen know, Tuesdays we focus on the Phoenix Suns, and then Thursdays we're going to be adding a podcast where we just cover the NBA in general. But there's a lot of fun news to go over. Team USA just finished up their last exhibition before Rio next week, and they had some pretty great things to say about Devin Booker, who's been playing for Team USA Select. So we're going to go through a couple of different things, and well, let's just kick it off right there. I want to play a little bit of audio from Klay Thompson. This is what Klay Thompson had to say about Devin Booker.
Well, first of all, he's only 19. That's unbelievable. When I was 19, I wasn't even thinking about the league. I was still in college, just trying to get to my next class and trying to handle the next day. So to see his growth just in his rookie year, he's going to be one of the best 2 guards in this league one day. People realize he's such a good shooter, but he's got such a great floor game as well. So I'm a big fan of Devin, and Phoenix got a real steal out of him, and he's got a very high ceiling, and it still baffles me. He's only 19, right? Yeah, that's unbelievable.
So obviously pretty high praise from Klay Thompson there. He says, when he was 19 years old, he was still worrying about what class to get to next, and it's really good seeing somebody like him because I think specifically Klay Thompson is one of the people that Suns fans hope Devin Booker can model himself after and maybe grow into. So what'd you think of the high praise there from Klay Thompson?
I loved it. I think that the fact that Team USA and people like Klay Thompson are noticing people like Devin Booker, or Devin Booker specifically, says a lot about him and the work ethic that he puts behind it. Anyone who watched him last year with the Suns could already tell that he was kind of that blossoming star. You looked at him and you're going, holy crap, how old is this kid? Like, he really is turning into that superstar player. So it's going to be great to actually watch him develop in the next couple of years because, like Klay Thompson said, his ceiling is so high. And I think he'll actually be a little bit more of a dynamic player than Klay Thompson if he develops his outside shot a little bit more. Because he's way more explosive already.
Well, and I think Klay specifically needed to develop that part of his game. He came into the league as well with the reputation for being, a pure shooter, one of the smoothest shots that the college evaluators had ever seen, but he wasn't great at putting the ball on the floor. He wasn't great with his pump fake and drive. But what he did have that stood out for him was his defense, and that's an area of weakness for Devin Booker. I mean, it's hard to point out the weaknesses for Devin, but he had 0 steals and I want to say 64 minutes of summer league. He had basically less than 1 steal a game last year. For somebody who has decent size for his position, he's just not getting into passing lanes. So I think his ceiling could be limited by that. But at the same time, I think Klay Thompson's smart to point out that because he's only 19 years old, who knows where his game can go. I mean, the upside is really monumental for Devin, and I think that having the opportunity to play for Team USA has been huge for him. He's being coached by Greg Popovich. For Suns fans, for better or worse, even if you hate Greg Popovich as a Suns fan like I do, you respect Greg Popovich because he's one of the best coaches in the league, if not the best coach in the league. And it's someone that you want showing Devin Booker how he believes the game to be played. So, how do you think Devin Booker can work on his defense? I mean, what do you think he's going to have to do to take that next step? Because just shooting threes is fine, but you got to be able to guard somebody.
I think, first of all, the fact that Greg Popovich and Coach K both gave him just the same type of praise that Klay Thompson did speaks to where he can go as well. I think, obviously, there's lots of areas that you could work on when you're talking about your defense. And I think as a 19-year-old kid, I think defense is more of the mental game. It's getting through all of those pieces. And as a 19-year-old kid, he's got a lot to learn. But he's also got a lot of time to learn it as well. So in the next few years, I would expect that just with the quickness that he has already, that he'll actually be able to develop into a solid defensive player. And he might not be the best defensive player, but I look at it kind of like Kyrie.
He just needs to not be the worst defensive player.
Right.
He doesn't have to be the best defensive player, but last year I want to say he was statistically, according to Real Plus Minus, I want to say he was in the bottom 3 in the NBA at shooting guard defensively. Right. So, there's a long way to go from last to first.
Right.
90 players in between, but he does show off the ability to learn, and he does show off that he wants to get better. But my concern, Mike, is that he's going to get overhyped. A lot of the problems that we have with young talent isn't that they don't have talent. We see players with great ceilings. Your Darius Mileses of the world, where people think, superstars written all over him. Joe Johnson got a $150 million contract and then became ISO Joe. Good player, but never reached that star status that I think the people of Atlanta or Brooklyn were hoping he'd reach. So how do we make sure that Devin Booker doesn't get too big of a head? How do we make sure he doesn't get too hyped?
That's a good point, and I think there's a couple things to that. First of all, the coach that we have right now and the attitude that they're taking as this is a family, I think will address a huge part of that in the way that they play ball. And like you said, as a Suns fan, we hate to point out anything about the Spurs and Greg Popovich or anything like that, but Popovich saying those things about him, Popovich created a dynamic in San Antonio, and I think that's kind of what we're looking at doing, what Earl Watson is looking at doing with the Suns right now too. And so I think the other thing that speaks to that is actually the attitude that Booker takes. After that Klay Thompson interview, there's actually a clip where Devin Booker speaks to his experience, and he just talks about the competition and the competitive drive that you need to be out there and what he got out of it. And I think that tells you that in some senses he's willing to develop because he wants to be that elite level player that he wants to. I think he really wants to play for the USA, like Team USA.
Yeah, and that
speaks to it very strongly. Like he's going to go places, but.
Well, and that's what I want to, I think that Doug and Wolf the other day, I was driving to work and I heard them arguing about this quote that they had heard from Devin Booker, and they took the quote out of context on purpose and sort of teased the segment with it, where the quote was Devin Booker saying that, essentially he believes he can be one of the best players in the league. And Ron Wolfley was concerned that it shows that Devin Booker might be getting a big head. And so playing with Team USA, all the gifts that come with it and the Greg Popovich time is great, but I do think it's good that we need to be, or smart to be on alert that, Earl Watson's going to have to make sure he's doing what he can to keep Devin Booker's head on his shoulders and not getting too big of a head. Now, here's one question I wanted to ask about Devin Booker. The USA Select Team, the goal of the USA Select Team, which is a brilliant idea, is to have some of the young players play against the established Team USA starters, that they help them prepare for the Olympics or World Championships. And then the goal is, you'd assume, for those players to transition into Olympic caliber players themselves or play for the team in the future. Are we overstating Devin Booker's quality to say he's a lock for 2020? Is Devin Booker just going to guarantee himself at this point a spot on the 2020 team, assuming he stays healthy with his, projected peak?
I would say that's probably an overstatement. And like I said, I love Devin Booker. I think he's a great young player. And there's a lot of development and a lot of other really great young stars that are still developing and they're still out there. I think there will be people who are in college right now or maybe in high school right now that could easily make the 2020 team too. So there's so much development and so much to the game. You're looking at like people like Karl Anthony Towns and Jahlil Okafor and some of the other just young players that are in the game right now that I think are closer to being locks if they continue to develop.
Yeah, and with Booker, I think one of the things about him is that his shooting will always be something teams covet. I mean, they're always going to want a guy who can spread the floor and just shoot the three. Now, granted, his defense, like we talked about, is going to need to improve, but the shooting guard position is weak. I mean, look at who's the best shooting guard in the NBA? James Harden? Maybe Klay Thompson. I mean, and we're talking a guy that averages less than 25 points a game. He's not a triple-double type of guy. Klay Thompson really impressed me. I would say of all the Warriors that I saw in the playoffs, the one that impressed me the most was Klay Thompson. I mean, he showed that when Curry went down, he was able to carry that team to a couple of victories. The guy scored 30 points in a quarter already in his career, basically.
Right, he saved them in that OKC series,
yeah,
for sure.
He was, basically the best player on the court for the Warriors during the Oklahoma City series. And, if that is the peak Devin Booker can reach, that'd be great. But there's two shooting guards that are any good. And so, I think the door's wide open for Devin Booker just because of the scarcity at that position and how shooting is going to be a high priority as the league continues to move forward with the style that the teams are playing and moving toward. So that's enough about Devin Booker. I want to stay on Team USA for a second. Kevin Durant, new Warrior, yuck, has been just wonderful so far for Team USA. The thing that kills me about Kevin Durant is he's using like 5 to 7 shots per game and averaging nearly 20 points on 7 shots. I mean, his efficiency is out of control. And I think that's a glimpse of what we're going to see in Golden State, that, now that he doesn't have the workload that he had in Oklahoma City, now that he doesn't have the responsibility to handle the ball because Klay can create space, because Curry can create space, because Draymond can run the floor, grab and go off the boards, and it's going to put KD in a position where he just takes the shots he likes. And Kevin Durant with better shot selection is scary, like scary, scary good. So I wanted to ask, what's the worst team that we can send to Team USA? Could we send Kevin Durant and a bunch of replacement level starters, or could we send Kevin Durant and 4 Ramon Sessionses as our starting lineup and still win? Could we send Kevin Durant and Alex Len and the backups for the Suns and still win? Because the Team USA just seems dominant at this point. They seem destined for gold. No one's even getting close in exhibitions. Their average victory is over 45 points.
Well, you have to look at who they're playing in the exhibitions. It's like China. It's like so.
Well, Argentina, they played as well. Argentina's good.
Yeah, there's Argentina, there's Spain. There's a couple good teams that are still able to compete. Some of the Eastern European teams will be pretty solid in the
Croatia,
too. Yeah,
Lithuania.
So you have to look at some of those teams before you just throw away all of the top players in the league. Obviously, USA has the best players, but the advantage that some of those European teams have is they've been playing together, except for a couple of the players that are now playing in the NBA. So when you bring back like Mozgov or you bring back Goran Dragic and they're playing for him, then you have this team dynamic, and then you add in a superstar player. Not that Mozgov is a superstar, but compared to some
not
of the
even
rest
a little
of the players,
bit.
Right? But Goran Dragic is definitely a little bit of a better player. Then you have to have a little bit better talent, and I think the fact that like the Gasol brothers are the best that we have to face says. Really,
and Mark's not even playing, so. I see your point, but I honestly think, tell me I'm wrong, Mike. We send, and this is a whole other issue because LeBron's not there, right. Steph's not there, presumably because of his ankle. Yeah. We're already not playing 2 of the 3 best players in the NBA, which may be a concern that we need to talk about another time. Does Team USA have something to worry about? I remember when they went in, I want to say it was 2002, and had the World Championships in Indianapolis, where Team USA got 6th. And then they followed that up with a performance in Athens where they got the bronze medal in 2004. Amar'e was a part of those teams for the Suns, and it was kind of embarrassing, honestly, to place 6th place in a tournament that was held in Indianapolis, Indiana. Right. So we always have to be alert when the stars don't want to play. But let's say we took LeBron, and then you took, it was LeBron, Amon Shumpert, J.R. Smith, and Jared Dudley. You telling me that team wouldn't win gold?
I think the Cavaliers would win gold.
Yeah, but just LeBron and the backups. If you took LeBron and the backup unit for the Cavs, or you could give LeBron the second 5 on any team in the NBA, and he's going to win the gold medal.
I think they should. The issue that we always have with Team USA is, 1, everyone on those teams have egos, and 2, it just kind of reminds me of the Lakers when the Lakers built that first real superstar team. That with even though they were old and ready to retire, you had 5 Hall of Famers starting as your starting 5. That's just ridiculous, and they didn't win the NBA Finals.
No.
So
And they had some injury problems, obviously, but I get your point. And chemistry is definitely plays a factor. I think that Colangelo, when he took over, obviously I love that he's in charge. He's done a lot for the city of Phoenix and, made Team USA basketball a priority again. He's been really clever about the way that he's created the pipeline. I think that's what the USA Select team is so interesting for. And there's some people kicking around ideas about how to limit who actually goes for Team USA, make it more of a young players type of thing. I kind of like the idea of capping it at anybody over the age of 22 is not allowed. I think if you're under 22, you're eligible to go. And, that would put us with players like Anthony Davis, Karl Anthony Towns, and, Andrew Wiggins would play for Team Canada, but, Devin Booker, those types of guys. You still have star power, but it's your future stars. So it helps to build the brand of the league. It could be good from a couple multiple avenues. I think we'll see more ideas like that kicked around as Team USA just dominates in this 2016 Olympics. I don't think it's going to be close. I think they're going to win the gold medal far and away. If they lose, it would be a huge shock. I mean, it would be a bigger shock than the Cavs. It would be almost, what's a bigger shock? The Cavs coming back from 3-1 against the Warriors, or Team USA not winning the gold medal in Rio?
Team USA not winning.
So. Yeah, so it's a tough call there. Now, Team USA did have some bad times, and I'm going to use that, unfortunately, for Amar'e as my transition. One of the things that happened in the Suns universe recently was that Amar'e Stoudemire retired, and I guess I should say that didn't happen in the Suns universe because Amar'e chose to retire as a Knick. And
then unretire and go play for his own team in Israel.
Yes, and then I think is that true? Is he gonna go play in Israel for a year now?
He signed a contract in Israel to play for the team that apparently he owns.
Okay, so Amar'e.
He's retiring from the NBA, so
which is, he's gonna be the best player in Israel.
Well, yeah,
probably by a lot. Yeah. Although it would have been interesting to see him play with Suns' new star Dragan Bender, future power forward, because I believe that's the league he was playing in. But as a Suns fan, and I'll get my bias out of the way, I was a huge Amar'e fan. I personally, was going to games back when he was a rookie. I wrote an article for Valley of the Suns about how when I first met Amar'e Stoudemire, I asked him for an autograph. He was with Stephon Marbury at the Chandler Mall, and he told me no. He told me that he wasn't allowed to give autographs, and I told him that if he had been a little bit better, I told him that he had one good year, and if he had massive knee problems, he probably would be willing to sign autographs. And then, a year later, he's having microfracture knee surgery, and
you cursed him.
And I take that responsibility. I'm a very powerful person, but with Amar'e, him retiring as a Knick really pissed me off. I couldn't understand it. He was terrible for the Knicks. He
was a Suns. I felt the same
he was
way.
injured
Like,
the whole time he was there.
What do you mean you're retiring with New York? Like, come back to Phoenix.
And we saw that sentiment. I think
everyone in Phoenix loved him during that time,
except Robert Sarver.
Yeah, well, screw that guy.
And
sorry.
That's why we have you here. So Amar'e retiring as a Knick struck, I think, the Suns universe as a little strange, and then come to find out, John Gambadoro from 98.7 Sports said that, or tweeted, hearing Amar'e wanted to come back to Suns for one final season. Suns weren't interested, so could be reason he retired a Knick, end quote. What's going on? It sounds like from the reports and the story I read by Paul Coro that for 2 years now, Amar'e has been reaching out to the Suns, trying to see if there was an opportunity to maybe finish out his career here, retire a Sun, even maybe have a ceremonial one-day contract like he signed with the Knicks. Why don't the Suns? What do you think was going on there? Is it just the slighted Sarver? He's upset that Amar'e bailed, and now he doesn't want to give Amar'e the time of day.
I think there has to be something like that, just to say like why would you not want who's legitimately one of the greatest power forwards of that era not to come back? The guy who led your team.
He was a 5-time All-NBA player.
Right.
He was a 6-time All-Star here in Phoenix.
And you refuse to sign him, to give him the money that he wants, so he goes to play with Carmelo in New York. And it's just, it's ridiculous that you wouldn't want to just sign him to one day. Do something like Steve Nash did, where, especially when the guy's asking and saying, hey, like, I spent my best years with Phoenix. I want to retire with you all. And so, like, at first I was just like, Amar'e, what are you doing? Like, that's just backhanding it to
and
Phoenix,
it wouldn't blow anybody's mind if Amar'e was being a diva. I mean, one of the things that we knew Amar'e wanted to go to New York before he was a free agent. You know, it was a destination people really thought was a likely spot for him because he has interests off the courts with, you know, he does a lot of different things in terms of his businesses. He likes to be involved in the media as much as possible. So, you know, New York was a natural fit for him, but I don't know. It seems like sour grapes. It feels like sour grapes. It feels like Robert Sarver was upset that Amar'e left, and, you know, that sort of created the eventual demise of the Suns and put us into the position we're in. I mean, have the Suns made the playoffs since Amar'e? I don't think so.
No.
So you never know. There could be some hatred there or some sour grapes from Robert Sarver toward Amar'e. It was still a bummer. It would have been nice to see Amar'e retire a Sun. I don't think he'll ever make it to the Suns' Ring of Honor. You think he's got a shot at that, or?
Oh, that's for the same reason that he's not retiring. If there's really those sour grapes, then whoever's up in the front office now just needs to get over it and be like, "Hey, come on, guys, let's figure this out." He's one of the greatest Suns players that played for that generation for sure. And you look at just his numbers and what he did for the Suns, just bringing that fan base out there. Just the way that the run and gun Suns played with him and Sean Marion dunking the ball all the time is what got the crowd excited. And now you're saying, hey, we don't really care about you. You can retire with New York because you pissed us off a little bit. I mean, if LeBron and Cleveland can get back together after everything that was said then why can't you just get over yourself and let Amar'e retire a Sun?
Yeah, it seemed petty. And my concern is that this type of stuff speaks to a larger problem, because one thing I hear a lot is NBA free agents don't want to come here. A lot of people attribute it to Robert Sarver not wanting to spend money or not making people feel welcome. He's had some comments about how millennials, aren't his favorite generation. And, when you're saying stuff like that, it's not necessarily appealing to the players you're trying to recruit. And I wonder if Suns GM Ryan McDonough feels hamstrung by this. I wonder if other players around the league, big-name free agents, look at this and say, what's up with the Suns? Why are they treating Amar'e like crap? Why would I want to go play for them when it doesn't seem like they take care of their guys long-term?
Right.
Now, they have two signings, Leandro Barbosa, Jared Dudley. They re-signed Nash to do the ceremonial contract thing. So it's not like they can't make their own argument. We take care of those who are good to us, those who matter to us. And, it just seems like there was an insurmountable tension between them and Amar'e.
You have to say, I love Dudley and Barbosa, but they're not Amar'e Stoudemire. It's like,
no. If
Sean Marion wanted to come back, are we going to give him the sleight of hand too and just be like, okay, sorry, Sean Marion?
No, I think the Matrix comes. I think the Matrix is going to be in the Ring of Honor. I think Sean Marion will definitely be in. I don't think Amar'e will, which, that's sad because Marion, Amar'e, and Nash should be enshrined together. I mean, those guys shouldn't just be in the Ring of Honor. They should be in the Ring of Honor right next to each other. Watching Amar'e on the pick and roll, on the high pick and roll with Steve Nash, with Marion back cutting for alley-oops was just
all day.
Crushing. Just crushing. It was one of the most fun offenses to watch ever. So, sadly, Amar'e will not be a Sun ever again, much to my dismay. I love Amar'e. I did curse him, but I ended up being his biggest fan. I started a website called I Fired Terry Porter just because everyone knew when the Suns signed Terry Porter and got rid of Mike D'Antoni, that was a sign that they thought Amar'e's defense wasn't good enough to win a championship. And then they went out and made the Shaq trade because they thought that was going to somehow help them defensively to have a 350-pound guy who can't move in their defense.
Who was good a long time
ago. Who was good 5 years before that.
Right.
But the Suns are in a position where they don't need to be petty like this. They're bad. They need all the good fortune they can get. They're going to win 30 games this year. They don't need to be telling anybody no. They don't need to be discouraging anybody from coming here, especially because in 2017, they plan on once again making runs at free agency. So, that's what Ryan McDonough says. Right now, the Suns have about $21 million in next year's cap room. That includes a $12 million cap hold on Alex Len, which we're going to discuss. This is a big year for Alex Len, and we'll just segue into that right now. I know we didn't plan on talking about it, but it's something that I heard yesterday. Alex Len next year will cost the Suns $12 million as his cap hold, where they have to determine whether or not they want to keep him. Now, if they renounce Alex Len's rights, they'll have up to $30 million, $33 million of cap space, which allows them to go after a max contract player. So Alex Len's going to have to show something this year. What are you looking for from Alex Len to see whether or not he's going to be able to be a Sun in the future?
Well, first of all, the big problem that I see that the Suns are going to have this year is just on the glass. Period.
Yeah,
Alex Len needs to step up. He needs to pick up his rebounding numbers. If Marquise Chris performs like he did in the summer league, then that'll be a big help. But his college years didn't show that he was really capable of doing that. So we'll see what happens with him. But from Alex Len, he needs to have more of a defensive presence. He needs to be able to pull the rebounds down, and he needs to be able to just sit down in the post. He's 7 foot tall. He just needs to be able to sit down and turn around and hit easy shots all day. If he develops that strong post game, which is the same problem that Bender is going to have, is he has to play outside way too much. So we'll see what Len can do from there. Hopefully Tyson Chandler, I don't imagine we'll have Tyson Chandler for much more than a year either.
Right. Yeah, and the Suns will be possibly looking to move Chandler, but that's the whole point of having Tyson Chandler, right? Is to help Alex Len get better at defense, understand his position in the paint, understand the defensive assignments. You know, what I'm going to be looking for this year is leadership from Alex Len. I want to see him leading the defense. I want to see him giving instruction. I want to see him calling out the picks, calling out the different positioning, the different offenses teams are running, so that he remains in position and is more of the general on the defensive side. I think anytime your big man is your best defender, it can be a huge asset for a team.
That's how it should be. Your big man needs to be that best defender. Look at who's the defensive player of the year in and year out. It's always the big man.
Yeah.
So
or it's a big wing. I mean, even when you talk about Draymond Green or Kawhi Leonard winning, these are guys that are playing, half their time at power forward. So, so it's absolutely true. I think we're hoping to see a lot from Alex Len, and the Suns offseason is what I wanted to get into next. The Suns have recently, there's a lot of grades in. I was listening to Nate Duncan and Danny LaRue talk about the Suns. I want to say, they gave them an A- and a B or B+, and we had a lot of grades. CBS Sports, I think you said, gave them a B. What goes into offseason grades? I mean, for me, when I'm talking offseason grades, when I'm looking at the Suns offseason, I'm taking the draft into consideration. So let's do that. Let's take the draft into consideration. Let's look at a couple of these grades that the Suns were given. Let's start off by looking at the CBS Sports one that you were talking about, Mike, that the Suns were rated, what'd they get, a B, you said?
No, well, the CBS Sports grade that I was talking about was actually the Suns lineup.
Okay.
They ranked them 26th out of the 30 teams in the league for the Suns starting lineup, which I thought was not even going to be their starting lineup. So I didn't take a whole lot of credit into what CBS Sports said. They need to step up their game. But I know a couple other people rated them B. I would give them a B for their overall performance.
Why not an A?
Because I think there's, to me, to have an A, you have to solidify all of the positions that you need, and you need to get some sort of star player or something that you can build the team around. And really, they just picked up Barbosa and Dudley, and Dudley, I think, fills that position at the 4. And but really he's like a 3-4. So to me, we still need a strong 4. We still need that strong power forward presence because we're still lacking on the boards.
Well, and that's what the Suns hope they have in Bender and Chris, I think, is they hope one of them works out long term at the 4 position. And it sounds like come hell or high water, they're going to keep trying dragging Bender and Marquise Chris at the 3. And they hope one of them can show the versatility to spend some time at the 3. I see Bender more with his length as a 5 long term. I think he could spend some time at the 5, not a ton because he's
like
just too skinny.
5.
He would be a stretch 5,
right,
yeah, and that's something that we're seeing more of.
Right.
And if Alex Len can extend his range, that would be a huge asset for him. But it didn't look like at least he was getting consistent with his jump shot. Yeah, and you're right. It wasn't CBS Sports; it was Fox Sports that had rated them a B. Right. And let's just go over it. This is what the Suns did in the offseason. They lost John Lure and Mirza Teletovic. Ronnie Price actually just signed with another team yesterday. can't remember who he signed with. It doesn't really matter. It's Ronnie freaking Price. So
we had 7 guards on our roster.
Yeah, exactly. So they lost John Lure, Mirza Teletovic, both who played the 4 for them. And then, they brought in Leandro Barbosa and Jared Dudley. And then the Suns drafted with the 4th pick overall, Dragan Bender. With the 34th pick, Tyler Ulis. And then they traded the 13th pick, the 28th pick, and another pick, I don't remember what the other pick was, for this 8th pick in the draft and drafted Marquise Chris. And, Bender and Chris was the last guy on the list of 8. There were 8 guys that draft experts said were really good, that had the upside of pure lottery talent. And the Suns got 2 of those guys. So, I'm giving the Suns an A, and I get it. I'm the resident homer here. I'm the guy who maybe is looking through rose-colored glasses at the Suns, but to me, the Suns needed to go into this offseason and do nothing. I mean, I know that sounds crazy, but I didn't want them to sign anybody. I didn't want them to sign Al Horford, even though I thought there was a fit. I thought that was something that could prove profitable for the Suns. I didn't want them to do anything big, and that was the plan. If the plan is don't spend any money, if the plan is get younger, get a culture that can create chemistry and cohesion that allows you to build that championship caliber team, they did it. I mean, their biggest need is on, like you said, the wing and the power forward position. They drafted Marquise Chris and Dragan Bender, both of whom have huge upside at those positions. They got a backup point guard in Tyler Ulis, which it didn't seem like a smart move at the time, but after watching him play in Summer League, looks like he may actually get some time for Phoenix and looks like he could be one of the steals of the draft. And that's somebody that a lot of people have pointed to as a potential steal for Phoenix. And they've got a young coach. So, they got Earl Watson. They retained him full-time. He's getting paid like nothing. I want to say he's the lowest paid coach in the NBA at $2.5 million a year, which when I say getting paid nothing, $2.5 million, still quite a bit of money to coach basketball. But, he's a young guy, and I talked to him, and he's one of these guys that he believes in personal development. He believes in developing the human being as a part of developing the basketball player. Right. And when you have a bunch of people who are 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, I mean, even Brandon Knight's 24. Eric Bledsoe's 24 or 25. Alex Len's 22. It's still a really, really young team. Right. So I think by retaining Earl Watson, they, instead of maybe going after and spending a bunch of money on a coach like a Jeff Van Gundy or a Kevin McHale or a Mark Jackson, none of those guys are going to maybe be there in 4 years when this team actually reaches its potential. You need somebody who can develop a rapport with the players, a work ethic, a professionalism, and then maybe, and as sad as this might be, Earl Watson will be the sacrificial lamb 4 years from now when the Suns actually have the championship roster, sort of the same way Mark Jackson came in and was a player's guy, but won 50 games with Golden State, but it still wasn't good enough. They got rid of him. So,
right. Well, that's really my concern with Earl Watson, is not that Earl Watson can't do the job. It's just the way that the Suns have treated some of their coaches in the past and just getting rid of them. Even with Jeff Hornacek halfway through the season last year, it's like, oh, we need a change. We're already terrible, so we might as well just get rid of our coach and blame everything on Jeff Hornacek, who led them to a great season right before then.
Yeah.
Where they won,
48 games. Missed the playoffs by one game.
But you win 48 games, which I think is a travesty in and of itself.
Well, I mean, 44 games might get in this year, so 43 games might get in this year.
Some people are saying that you could get in winning only like 40 games at some point. But regardless of that, the problem is I love Earl Watson. I got to actually play with him and meet him when I was in Kansas City because his cousin played for.
That's where he's from.
UMKC. Yeah, he's from Kansas City, so he came in. I got to see him play against some of the players out there, the college players when he was playing. I think for he was in Memphis or Toronto maybe at the time. But he's just ridiculous, and he's got a great attitude. And I'm afraid that he'll make it halfway through the season and they get cut too, which is a problem because, just like you said, he needs to be there to develop those young players, and I think he can be a great mentor to bring all of those young players together.
Yeah, I I was convinced the Suns were going to do something silly in free agency. I was convinced they were going to sign Mo Harkless to a 4-year, $50 million deal. I was convinced they were going to offer Chandler Parsons the max. I was convinced they were going to do something because I thought, to be honest, that Robert Sarver is the type of guy who wants to have a team that makes the playoffs while rebuilding. He wants one of these young Minnesota, Utah type teams that are relying on their young talent and are still developing, but they're good enough to be a playoff contending team, which keeps interest in free agents, which keeps free agents interested in coming here because it makes them feel like maybe they're the missing piece. I go and play with these young guys, give them a little bit of my veteran leadership, and now that pushes us to the next level. And because they could have been easily misspent their money, but didn't. The Dudley contract's 3 years, $30 million. Dudley's a huge asset at that point. Dudley was leading the NBA in three-point shooting before Markieff Morris, the cancer of the Suns locker room, was lopped out and surgically attached to Washington. And, he's a seriously good defender. I mean, we were talking real plus minus. Dudley rated out as like the 17th best wing defender last year at the small forward position. And Bender's just a huge upside guy. Chris is a huge upside guy. They didn't spend any stupid money. They didn't make any bad trades. I just think as far as if you were a Suns fan and you wanted them to keep their cap flexibility going into 2017, you wanted them to get younger and bigger at the power forward and wing position, and you wanted them to get more leadership and role models, I think they knocked it out of the park. I mean, I have no problem giving the Suns an A+ offseason grade because I think they crushed the draft. I think they had far and away the best draft in the NBA. I think that the signings they made, I mean, Barbosa's getting paid $4 million this year. He may play 10 minutes a game, but he's guaranteed $500,000 next year. That's a contract that the Suns are not concerned about. It's something that this is sad, but if Barbosa is, playing well, he could get traded midseason. So could Dudley. So could PJ Tucker. These are guys now that the Suns have a lot of flexibility, a lot of different pieces to move and get assets. You're telling me that Jared Dudley, let's say the Spurs are making a run and they think that they need another wing. Danny Green gets hurt or Kawhi gets hurt and they need another wing. All of a sudden, maybe San Antonio is going to send us a first-round pick for Jared Dudley. Or you could see a team like the Clippers or the Rockets, or in the Eastern Conference, you've got teams like the Celtics and, the Cavs even. These are the types of teams that are going to be looking for guys who can shoot and play defense at the wing position when it comes for the playoffs. I mean, that's the big deficit. Who's going to guard Paul George? Who's going to guard Kevin Durant? Who's going to guard, those players? And,
right.
And the Suns are in a position now to where they may have some real assets to continue to maneuver.
Right. I think that's actually kind of interesting because the way that I look at it is, like, if I'm Leandro and Jared, I'm looking at it going, hey, I'm coming back to this team because I love this team and I want to retire as Suns. And at the same time, like, Leandro is probably, and actually Dudley now is probably our biggest asset. The fact that Leandro is probably our biggest asset because his contract is so small, and he is that great bench player that will come out give you like 10 strong minutes a game if that's all you need, and he's the blur. Like,
he played really well in the finals.
He still has that speed. He still has that ability to knock down those shots. He was shooting a little bit less last year, but he's also getting less minutes last year.
And he's gonna have trouble getting minutes here too,
Right. And that's one of the reasons I didn't give them. I wouldn't give them an A, is just because he's just one more guard, which, like you said, we got him for a steal with how low his contract is, but we've got Knight and we've got Bledsoe and we've got Booker, and
Goodwin,
Ulis. And now we picked up Ulis, who, when we signed Barbosa, I was like, okay, we don't know about this Ulis kid.
He didn't go to Kentucky. He didn't go to Kentucky, so I don't know that he doesn't fit the model anymore.
Right. But at the same time, you're looking at Barbosa going, okay, you'll be a good veteran leader. You can come in and just give those extra couple minutes that we need.
Yeah,
I would rather trade Knight than Barbosa if we can get something of value for him.
Yeah, and that the trade rumor mill is something that I talked to Earl Watson about too. He was pretty upset when I brought up the idea that trade rumors sort of undermine the chemistry he's trying to build. And whenever a player is being discussed in the trade block, how how really invested are they getting into what you're trying to sell? How invested are they
Right,
into the team's
right.
success? It sounds like, though, Brandon Knight, he just had a really cool event this last weekend doing some stuff for the kids' communities and gave out a bunch of school supplies. And he's still involved in the community. And, he was overseas helping D. Brown, famous for the no-look dunk, with his charity. And he was asked about the Suns' young roster, and he said, he thought that there's something really special brewing here in Phoenix. And Earl Watson told me plain to my face that Brandon Knight is one of the most important pieces on the Suns team because of the way he is willing to sacrifice and the way that Bledsoe and Booker are all going to have to sacrifice time for each other, that he's buying in and that it's something that is going to make them very difficult to guard. And a healthy Brandon Knight is really good. I mean, he was a borderline all-star in Milwaukee. This is a guy who's on a really cheap contract. If he can just stay healthy and even show anything, I think the Suns may have found the three-guard system they're looking for. And low-key, they sort of have done the same thing that they were getting so much criticism for when they signed Isaiah Thomas. When they brought in Isaiah Thomas and then all of a sudden Goran Dragic was here, you had Isaiah Thomas and Eric Bledsoe. It created this sort of logjam, and it seemed to piss off Goran. Goran demanded a trade, and Goran, the Suns ended up getting a first-round pick out of it, which was good, but 2 first-round picks out of it, which was good. But Goran Dragic leaving, are we just recreating the same problem? I mean, if Brandon Knight does well like Isaiah Thomas did, is Devin Booker going to get mad that his minutes are getting limited? Is Eric Bledsoe going to get mad? These guys always say the right thing. It's about winning. It's about the team. But do they really believe that?
And that's the real question, especially with the younger players, is what they actually believe. We get, like you said, though, we do have a strong Kentucky core.
Yeah,
very strong Kentucky core, and it is, and that was one of my big things with the offseason grade as well. As you're looking at all of the people that we've now picked up, we've picked up all of these strong guards, which is great, and at the same time, and you and I talked about this when we talked about the 3-guard system and how frustrated that actually made other teams when they were on the court. The numbers for that 3-guard system, even though everyone in the league was like, oh, the 3-guard system doesn't work, when you look at the numbers, is a great system. And I think even though they're not really that much bigger there, it feels like a bigger 3-guard lineup.
Well, anybody's bigger than
Isaiah Thomas, except for Tyler Ulis.
I guess Tyler Ulis is not bigger than Isaiah Thomas. He's the same height as Isaiah Thomas, but
if you transition Booker to a 3, and then you have Bledsoe, Knight, and Booker going in there with like Marquise Chris, or you put Jared Dudley in there for the defensive presence.
Yeah.
And you have Alex Len or Tyson Chandler up big, then I think you actually could have a pretty solid lineup that could develop. If Brandon Knight plays, he averaged 19 points last season, so it's not like he's a scrub by any means. He's doing well. It's just a matter of where he's going to fit with Bledsoe in that lineup.
Well, and if all 3 guards are on the court, theoretically all 3 of them can shoot 40% from 3.
Right.
Now, if you add in, like you said, a Dudley and then maybe Bender or Chris, I mean, first of all, you're going real small if you put Chris at the center in that lineup. But it just seems like the Suns are dedicated to that idea. It doesn't seem like it matters to them whether or not other people think the 3-guard lineup isn't going to work, that they think something, that Ryan McDonough has a vision, he has an idea. Because he didn't just abandon the 3-guard system. He may have abandoned Goran Dragic and Isaiah Thomas within the 3-guard system.
Right.
But it looks like the Suns fully intend on playing lineups that are going to include Bledsoe, Knight, and Booker. You're going to see those 3 guys on the court together. And that's exciting. I mean, that's something I'm actually excited to see. Whether it works out or not doesn't really matter. The Suns can afford to lose games while experimenting because it just helps their assets get better. And so, we've got about, 45 seconds left. So I just want to wrap up here. Mike, why don't you tell the people where they can follow you and your Twitter handle?
My Twitter handle is @TheMikeSobek.
How do you spell your last name?
Sobek.
There you go, people. The Mike Sobek. He will be rejoining me to talk Suns regularly. We may or may not talk other news as well. Head over to valleyofthesuns.com and check out the great work that we're doing over there. Kevin Pelton of ESPN just confirmed that He's going to come onto the podcast hopefully here for training camp, which will be a really big deal. I just want to thank you, Mike, for being here. And those of you who listen, we will see you on Thursday for the NBA General Podcast. Thanks, everyone.